All right, so today we're going really deep, like buckle up deep.
Oh, I like where this is going.
We're talking about happiness, but like the culture kind. Specifically, how the Brazilian way of being happy sometimes clashes kind of hard with the European view.
And we're using football or soccer, depending on where you are, as our lens.
Exactly. And, well, our case study is Vinicius Jr.
Yeah.
And how people react to the way he celebrates scoring a goal.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it goes way beyond just a game. It's about how different cultures view happiness, respect, what it even means to be professional.
So I've been looking at all this research, and honestly, I'm a little lost.
Lost how?
Well, on one hand, Brazilians have this. Yeah. It's almost like this duty to be joyful. But then on the other hand, for some Europeans, it's like that joy is, I don't know.
Yeah.
Too much.
I see where you're coming from. It's a fascinating paradox, really.
Help me out here. Unpack it for me.
Okay, so first we got to look at what the sources say about Brazilian culture. It's like the word joy is everywhere, woven into the fabric of life. Carnival, daily life, it's just there.
Okay, but doesn't everyone want to be happy? Why is it different in Brazil?
Good question. One thing the research points to is this idea that for Brazilians, joy is kind of tied up with resilience, like finding light even when things are tough.
Oh, so it's deeper than just, smiling because something good happened.
Way deeper. It's almost like celebrating life is this act of defiance, a way of pushing back against historical inequalities.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture. So it's not just being happy, it's almost like a statement.
Bingo. And that statement can be super powerful, especially on a global stage like football.
Which brings us back to Vinicius Jr., right? He scores, he dances, and the world kind of loses it.
And it's interesting because you see these two worlds, these two sets of values colliding head on.
Explain that.
Well, for lots of Brazilians, what Vini Jr. does, the dancing, it's just part of Jogo bonito, the beautiful game.
Wait, hold on, break that down for me. I know it means beautiful game, but I feel like there's got to be more to it.
Totally. It's not just about winning. It's a whole philosophy. It's about expressing yourself on the field through skill and beauty. Like, think of Pele, Ronaldinho. They embodied that. And for some, Vini Jr. is carrying that torch.
Gotcha. Okay, so the dancing, it's not just a celebration. It's an extension of how Brazilians see the sport itself.
You got it. But then the question becomes, why does it rub some people the wrong way?
Yeah, exactly. It's not like European football is all stiff and serious. They love beautiful play, too.
True, but this is where those cultural norms we talked about come in. What one culture sees as spontaneous and genuine might come across totally different in another.
So what, Europeans don't experience happiness?
No, that's not it. It's more that. They might express it differently, or it's appropriate in different situations.
I'm following you.
Think about the historical stuff we touched on. In some European cultures, there's a big emphasis on restraint, keeping your emotions in check. It's almost subconscious, but it shapes how they react to big displays of emotion, especially in a competitive environment like football.
All right, so I get the broad strokes now. But this reserved thing is still fuzzy for me. Like, specifically, why might that be the case in Europe?
Oh, good question. We should unpack that more. We need to dive into the history, maybe even some philosophy and religious stuff to really get it.
Okay, you got me hooked. Let's do it.
So we were talking about this whole idea of European reserve, right?
I got to say, I need more than just restraint and keeping things in check. Give me the historical, philosophical deep dive.
Okay, let's rewind the clock way back, like Enlightenment era back.
Okay. Philosophy 101 time.
Sort of. Think about the core values that came out of that period. Reason, logic, self-control. They became super central in lots of European societies.
So less outward emotion, more thinking it through.
Exactly. And it wasn't just about how people acted. It shows up everywhere. Art, music, architecture. You see this focus on order, harmony, structure.
Okay. But how does that translate to football? It's a pretty emotional sport.
True. But even with all that passion, there are cultural layers. Some of what I've read suggests that in some European football cultures, there's this emphasis on, a certain decorum.
Decorum.
Yeah, like keeping it professional, respecting your opponents, and the game itself.
So is that where Vinicius Jr. and his dancing come in? Like, it's seen as unsportsmanlike.
Not exactly. It might not be about intentional disrespect, more like clashing expectations.
Oh, so what's seen as spontaneous and joyful in one culture could be?
Could be seen as showboating in another. Or a lack of humility.
It's like they're speaking different languages, but not with words, with emotions.
That's a great analogy. And remember, this goes beyond just individual players. We're talking big cultural trends. Think about how football rivalries play out. England versus Germany, Spain versus Italy.
It gets intense.
Right? There's a national identity tied up in it, cultural pride, that can be amazing, but also, well, it can lead to misunderstandings.
Okay, so we've got these deep cultural differences and then this whole layer of national pride on top of it. Anything else we're missing?
Well, there's another piece here that's kind of sensitive but important. Some sources talk about historical power dynamics, like the legacy of colonialism and how that's played out even in football.
Hold up. Explain that. What do you mean colonialism and football?
It's this idea that for a long time, European perspectives, European values, they were seen as the default, the right way of doing things. And that's had an impact on tons of stuff, from how history is taught to, honestly, even beauty standards.
Ah, I see what you're getting at. So if European football has been shaped by that, then someone like Vinicius Jr., who represents a different way of doing things.
He's disrupting the status quo.
And that's not always comfortable for the people who are used to things being a certain way.
Right. His success, his talent, and yeah, even just his joy kind of challenges that old hierarchy.
Wow. So it's way bigger than just a dance. We're talking cultural identity, power, who gets to define success, and how.
Exactly. And that's what makes Vinicius Jr.'s story so fascinating. He's a lightning rod for all these bigger discussions about race, culture, representation in the sport.
It's making me rethink everything I thought I knew about football.
Me too. And that's the power of a deep dive like this, right? We go beyond the surface.
Yeah. But I gotta say, my brain is kind of fried right now.
I hear you. But we're not done yet. Next, we got to talk about solutions.
Solutions? Like, how do we even begin to bridge these cultural gaps?
Well, first, we have to acknowledge they exist, why they exist. And then...
All right, so my brain is full, like officially full. Vinicius Jr.'s dancing, the Enlightenment, colonialism, it's connected.
It is, and that's what makes this so interesting, right? How something as simple as a goal celebration can spark these huge discussions.
Yeah, exactly. We went from football to, like, the history of ideas. But now what? Where do we go from here?
Well, I think the first thing is just admitting that these differences exist, you know?
Yeah.
And trying to understand where they come from.
Okay, that makes sense, but how? How do we actually do that? Especially in football, where everyone's got such strong opinions.
Education, I think. And not just in schools. I'm talking about how the media covers these things, the conversations fans have, even just what we talk about with our friends.
So basically, before we judge, we need to try to understand.
Exactly. Like, instead of seeing something and saying, oh, that's unprofessional, we should ask, why might that be considered okay or even celebrated in a different culture?
Okay. So it's not about saying one way is right and the other is wrong. It's about
realizing that different cultures have different values. And those differences can actually make things more interesting, you know?
You know what? This whole Jogo bonito thing, maybe that's the key.
How so?
Well, it's about appreciating the beauty of the game.
Yeah.
Right? The skill, the artistry, the passion, no matter where a player comes from.
I like that. It's about embracing all the ways football can be beautiful.
And maybe, if we focus on that, we can start to see past the differences and just enjoy the game. And maybe Vinicius Jr. can just dance without all the backlash.
It would be great to see a football culture where everyone feels comfortable expressing themselves.
For sure. We've danced our way through a lot of fascinating material today.
It seems like what we're really grappling with is how different cultures define not only happiness, but also respect, professionalism, and even identity itself. There's no easy answer here, but...
So, if Vinicius Jr.'s dancing is seen as a challenge by some, could it also be a sign of positive change coming to the world of football? What do you think?